Great Booker there. In looking at all viewpoints here, and Father, we have this open discussion with people on social media, and they're asking about Representative Gozar. I hope I'm
this collection of leadership all in one place.
It is. It's quite remarkable. But to your point that about dissent,
yes.
What the Pope started when he started his last encyclical, he said, this is intended to be a conversation. And you can't have a conversation if you don't enter into dialogue. And hearts and minds can't grow unless we're open to that. And I think that's part of what this Pope Francis is saying, that this needs to be a conversation that draws us closer to truth.
A lot of people also talking about the global persecution of, as we see in all religions, but of Christians. Has he spoken enough on this issue, in your opinion?
Well, I think that this is a great tragedy that is happening. These communities date back to the very foundation of Christianity itself. And so to see their destruction, I'm not sure enough can be done to protect these people.
Right. Waiting comments?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We read through the address that the Pope will make to this joint gathering of Congress right now. It is, as we mentioned, rather lengthy. It was budgeted for about 30 minutes. May take a little bit longer because, well, we saw yesterday at the White House, you figured the Pope was essentially reading about a one-page
measured
address.
It's not his first
most
comfortable language.
Right.
So.
And this is going to be about 5 times that length. So we're looking at about 5 typewritten pages.
Well, yeah, really has a message. I mean, to do that in a language that he's gone on record and said, it's not, not my strongest. Clearly, for me, it says that he really has something he wants the American leadership to hear.
We can't go into specifics about what he's going to say, but we can say that he will talk about some national figures of prominence here in the United States. There's Senator Tim Kaine. He will talk about some international issues right now, some of which the both of you have just mentioned fairly recently, and I think expound upon some of the topics that he touched on in brief at the White House yesterday. But it's going to be more that, Father, like you said, that spirit of togetherness and basically putting the issues out there.
Mr. Speaker, the Chief Justice and Associate Justices of the Supreme Court.
Dave, for the record, I would be afraid to have that job.
Of announcing?
Yeah, I would be afraid to have that job. I'm just going to be honest right now because I'm sitting with you, Father Bill.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want it either.
No, too much. Chief Justice Roberts there as the Associate Justices file in as well. We know that the Pope is expected to enter the House chamber at 10 a.m. It's a little under 4 minutes from now.
Mr. Speaker, the President's Cabinet.
To see our entire nation's leadership in one place, it really is laying clear what a major historical moment this is.
Well, as of right now, they're still going right on the schedule, and we expect this address to begin just in literally the next few minutes. It's 9:57 right now on this Thursday morning. Taking a look inside the House chambers on Capitol Hill, inside the U.S. Capitol. What an amazing collection of leadership, both sides of the aisle represented, and the administration. We're going to continue to listen in. Okay, but we don't need to eavesdrop on John Kerry's conversation entirely.
I'd like to hear it.
Well, I was too, so Steve. Secretary of State John Kerry, of course. Al Franken, I know it's been some years, I'm still getting used to him not cracking a joke or two. Al Franken there. I had questioned whether the Pope will stop by Statuary Hall, and apparently he will. That's slated for about 10:45 this morning.
I believe as he leaves the chambers, he'll walk through and he'll stop, most likely at the statue of Junipero Serra.
And he'll give a gift of a Bible from St. John's University, a gift to Congress.
May also be an opportunity for some folks inside the Capitol to see him who were not invited into the chambers right now for this address.
Of course, those jumbotrons will bring the message of the Pope to the thousands, tens of thousands gathered there on the lawn of the Capitol. They'll be included in this as well.
You know, Father,
2 minutes away now.
Father, when we talk about the fact that the Pope will basically put topics out there and encourage discussion on these topics, you know very well how the Catholic Church works. You also know how this government works, having worked on Capitol Hill for many, many years. Do you feel that beyond today, it will be effective as far as the Pope's message when it comes to Congress and how Congress operates from this point forward?
Well, I think that it will certainly give important food for thought and conversation when you actually have a document that you can discuss and then allow room for compromise, for growth, and for seeking truth. I think this will make a difference, especially for our Catholic lawmakers. This should be a challenge in some very real way. I mean, they're there not as Catholics but as representatives. But the Pope is here to say, hey, our faith cannot be separate from who we are and what we do at all times. So the excitement, you can feel it, can't you, in that?
Anticipation.
I think everybody just took a look at their watches and saw the time, and now taking a look at the entranceway. No one wants to miss that moment when the Pope enters.
Have you seen, Steve, the little girl who got the blessing from the
I've not seen a shot of her yet, but if she is a guest, she would be in the upper levels, and we really haven't seen too many shots because we've really just been watching all of the dignitaries and the members. There you see members of the Supreme Court, all of them walking through, and so it's a little tough right there. You can see in the balcony where all the guests will be. But we haven't seen any close-ups yet. Allison, referring to the little girl yesterday who was on the parade route, who was escorted over to the Pope-mobile, gave him a gift along the way. She was later invited by one of her representatives from the state of California to be a guest today. What an honor that is.
And she herself is a citizen because she was born here, but parents of undocumented immigrants. And so bringing to light this challenge that we face.
Alrighty,
I think we just got the one hang on tight, we're almost there sign.
I'd like to know what the Pope and John Boehner spoke about. Perhaps we'll hear from him.
Sure, we'll hear from that afterward. I think we're clearing the aisles right now, getting ready for the entrance. So now the question becomes, who becomes the first member to reach out and try to touch the Pope?
Or have they been warned?
Well, they have been, but we've also heard from some, including Senator Tim Kaine, who said, look, I'm not going to lie to you. If I have the chance to talk to him, I'm going to talk to him.
Mr. Speaker, the Pope of the Holy See. Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you Pope Francis of the Holy See.
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, honorable members of the Congress, dear friends, I am most grateful for your invitation to address this joint session of Congress in the land of the free at the home of the brave. I would like to think that the reason for this is that I too am a son of this great continent from which we have all received so much and toward which we share a common responsibility. Each son or daughter of a given country has a mission, a personal and social responsibility. Your own responsibility as members of Congress is to enable this country by your legislative activity to grow as a nation. You are the face of its people. They are representatives. You are called to defend and preserve the dignity of your fellow citizens in the tireless and demanding pursuit of the common good. For this is the chief aim of all politics. A political society endures when it seeks as a vocation to satisfy common needs by stimulating the growth of all its members, especially those in situations of greater vulnerability or risk. Legislative activity is always based on the care for the people. To this, you have been invited, called, and convened by those who elect you. Yours is a work which makes me reflect in two ways on the figure of Moses. On the one hand, the patriarch and lawgiver of the people of Israel symbolizes the need of people to keep alive their sense of unity by means of just legislation. On the other, the figure of Moses leads us directly to God and thus to the transcendent dignity of the human being. Moses provides us with a good synthesis of a work. You are asked to protect, by means of the law, the image and likeness fashioned by God on every human life. Today, I would like not only to address you, but through you, the entire people of the United States. Here, together with the representatives, I would like to take this opportunity to dialogue with the many thousands of men and women who strive each day to do a honest day's work, to bring home the daily bread, to save money, and one step at a time to build a better life for their families. These are men and women who are not concerned simply with paying their taxes, but in their own quiet way, sustain the life of society. They generate solidarity by their actions, and they create organizations which offer a helping hand to those most in need. I would also like to enter into dialogue with the many elderly persons who are a storehouse of wisdom forged by experience and who seek in many ways, especially through voluntary work, to share their stories and their insights. I know that many of them are retired, but still active. They keep working to build up this land. I also want to dialogue with all those young people who are working to realize their great and noble aspirations, who are not led astray by facile proposals, and who face difficult situations, often as a result of immaturity on the part of many adults. I wish to dialogue with all of you, and I would like to do so through the historical memory of your people. My visit takes place at a time when men and women of goodwill are marking the anniversaries of several great Americans. The complexities of history and the reality of human weakness notwithstanding, these men and women, for all their many differences and limitations, were able, by hard work and self-sacrifice, some at the cost of their lives, to build a better future. They shaped fundamental values which endure forever in the spirit of the American people. A people with this spirit can live through many crises, tensions, and conflicts, while always finding the resources to move forward and to do so with dignity. These men and women offer us a way of seeing and interpreting reality. In honoring their memory, we are inspired, even amid conflicts and in the here and now of each day, to draw upon our deepest cultural reserve. I would like to mention 4 of these Americans: Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, Dorothy Day, and Thomas Merton. This year marks the 150th anniversary of the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln, the guardian of liberty, who labored tirelessly that this nation under God might have a new birth of freedom. Building a future of freedom requires love of the common good and cooperation in a spirit of subsidiarity and solidarity. All of us are quite aware of and deeply worried by the disturbing social and political situation of the world today. Our world is increasingly a place of violent conflict, hatred, and brutal atrocities, committed even in the name of God and of religion. We know that no religion is immune from forms of individual delusion or ideological extremism. This means that we must be especially attentive to every type of fundamentalism, whether religious or of any other kind. A delicate balance is required to combat violence perpetrated in the name of a religion, an ideology, or an economic system, while also safeguarding religious freedom, intellectual freedom, and individual freedoms. But there is another temptation which we must especially guard against. The simplistic reductionism which sees only good or evil, or, if you will, the righteous and sinners. The contemporary world, with its open wounds, which affect so many of our brothers and sisters, demands that we confront every form of polarization, which would divide it into these 2 camps. We know that in the attempt to be feed of enemy without, we can be tempted to feed the enemy within, to imitate the hatred and violence of tyrants and murderers, is the best way to take their place. That is something which you, as people, reject. Our response must instead be one of hope and healing, of peace and justice. We are asked to summon the courage and the intelligence to resolve today's many geopolitical and economic crises. Even in the developed world, the effects of unjust structures and actions are all too apparent. Our efforts must aim at restoring hope, righting wrongs, maintaining commitments, and thus promoting the well-being of individuals and of peoples. We must move forward together as one in a renewed spirit of fraternity and solidarity, cooperating generously for the common good. The challenges facing us today call for a renewal of that spirit of cooperation which has accomplished so much good throughout the history of the United States. The complexity, the gravity, and the urgency of these challenges demand that we pool our resources and talents and resolve to support one another with respect for our differences and our convictions of conscience. In this land, the various religious denominations have greatly contributed to building and strengthening society. It is important that today, as in the past, the voice of faith continue to be heard, for it is a voice of fraternity and love, which tries to bring out the best in each person and in each society. Such cooperation is a powerful resource in the battle to eliminate new global forms of slavery, born of great injustices, which can be overcome only through new policies and new forms of social consensus. Politics is instead an expression of our compelling need to live as one in order to build as one the greatest common good, that of a community which sacrifices particular interests in order to share injustice and peace, its goods, its interests, its social life. I do not underestimate the difficulty that this involves, but I encourage you in this effort. here too, I think of the march which Martin Luther King led from Selma to Montgomery 50 years ago as part of the campaign to fulfill his dream of full civil and political rights for African Americans. That dream continues to inspire us all, and I am happy that America continues to be, for many, a land of dreams. Dreams which lead to action, to participation, to commitment. Dreams which awaken what is deepest and truest in the life of the people. In recent centuries, millions of people came to this land to pursue the dream of building a future in freedom. We, the people of this continent, are not fearful of foreigners because most of us were once foreigners. I say this to you as the son of immigrants, knowing that so many of you are also descendants from immigrants. Tragically, the rights of those who were here long before us were not always respected. For those peoples and their nations, from the heart of American democracy, I wish to reaffirm my highest esteem and appreciation. Those first contacts were often turbulent and violent, but we know that it's very difficult to judge the past by the criteria of the present. Nonetheless, when the stranger in our midst appeals to us, we must not repeat the sins and the errors of the past. We must resolve now to live as nobly and as justly as possible, as we educate new generations not to turn their back on our neighbors and everything around us. Building a nation calls us to recognize that we must constantly relate to others, rejecting a mindset of hostility in order to adopt one of reciprocal subsidiarity in a constant effort to do our best. I'm confident that we can do this. Our world is facing a refugee crisis of a magnitude known since the Second World War. This presents us with great challenges and many hard decisions. On this continent, thousands of persons are led to travel north in search of a better life for themselves and for their loved ones, in search of greater opportunity. It is not what we want for our own children. We must not be taken aback by the numbers, but rather view them as persons, seeing their faces and listening to their stories, trying to respond as best we can to their situation, to respond in a way which is always human, just and fraternal. We need to avoid a common temptation now awaits to discard whatever proves troublesome. Let us remember the golden rule. Do unto others as you do unto others as you will have them do unto you. This rule points us in a clear direction. Let us treat others with the same passion and compassion with which we want to be treated. Let us seek for others the same possibilities which we seek for ourselves. Let us help others to grow as we would like to be helped ourselves. In a word, if we want security, let us give security. If we want life, let us give life. If we want opportunities, let us provide these opportunities. The yardstick we use for others will be the yardstick which time uses for us. The Golden Rule also reminds us of our responsibility to protect and defend human life at every stage of its development. This conviction has led me from the beginning of my ministry to advocate at different levels the global abolition of the death penalty. I am convinced that this way is the best, since every life is sacred. Every human person is endowed with unalienable dignity, and society can only benefit from the rehabilitation of those convicted of crimes. Recently, my brother bishops here in the United States renewed the call for the abolition of the death penalty. Not only do I support them, but I also offer encouragement to all those who are convinced that a just and necessary punishment must never exclude the dimension of hope and the goal of rehabilitation. In these times, when social concerns are so important, I cannot fail to mention the servant of God, Dorothy Day, who founded the Catholic Worker Movement. Her social activism, her passion for justice and for the cause of the oppressed were inspired by the gospel, her faith, and the example of the saints. How much progress has been made in this area in so many parts of the world? How much has been done in these first years of the third millennium to raise people out of extreme poverty? I know that you share my conviction that much more still needs to be done, and in times of crisis and economic hardship, a spirit of global solidarity must not be lost. At the same time, I would encourage you to keep in mind all those people around us who are trapped in a cycle of poverty. They too need to be given hope. The fight against poverty and hunger must be fought constantly and on many fronts, especially in its cause. I know that many Americans today, as in the past, are working to deal with this problem. It goes without saying that part of this great effort is the creation and distribution of wealth. The right use of natural resources, the proper application of technology, and the harnessing of the spirit of enterprise are essential elements of an economy which seeks to be modern, inclusive, and sustainable. Business is a noble vocation directed to producing wealth and improving the world. It can be a fruitful source of prosperity from the area in which it operates, especially if it sees the creation of jobs as an essential part of its service to the common good. This common good also includes the earth, a central theme of the encyclical, which I recently wrote in order to enter into the dialogue with all people about our common home. We need a conversation which includes everyone, since the environmental challenge we are undergoing and its human roots concern and affect us all. In Laudato Si, I call for a courageous and responsible effort to redirect our steps and to avert the most serious effects of the environmental deterioration caused by human activity. I'm convinced that we can make a difference, I'm sure. And I have no doubt that the United States and this Congress have an important role to play. Now is the time for courageous action and strategies aimed at implementing a culture of care and an integrated approach to combating poverty, restoring dignity to the excluded, and at the same time, protecting nature. We have the freedom needed to limit and direct technology, to devise intelligent ways of developing and limiting our power, and to put technology at the service of another type of progress, one which is here, more human, more social, more integral. In this regard, I am confident that America's outstanding academic and research institutions can make a vital contribution in the years ahead. A century ago, at the beginning of the Great War, which Pope Benedict XV termed a pointless slaughter, another notable American was born, the Cistercian monk Thomas Merton. He remains a source of a spiritual inspiration and guide for many people. In his autobiography, Merton wrote, "I came into the world free by nature, in the image of God. I was, nevertheless, the prisoner of my own violence, my own selfishness, in the image of the world into which I was born." That world was the picture of hell, full of men like myself, loving God and yet hating him, born to love him, living instead in fear of hopeless self-contradictory hangers. Merton was, above all, a man of prayer, a thinker who challenged the certitudes of this time and opened new horizons for souls and for the church. He was also a man of dialogue, a promoter of peace between peoples and religions. From this perspective of dialogue, I would like to recognize the efforts made in recent months to help overcome historic differences linked to painful episodes of the past. It is my duty to build bridges and to help all men and women in any way possible to do the same. When countries which have been at odds resume the path of the dialogue, a dialogue which may have been interrupted for the most legitimate of reasons, new opportunities open up for all. This that required and requires courage and daring, which is not the same as irresponsibility. A good political leader is one who, with the interests of all in mind, seizes the moment in a spirit of openness and pragmatism. A good political leader always opts to initiate processes rather than possessing space. Being at the service of dialogue and peace also means being truly determined to minimize and in the long term to end the many armed conflicts throughout our world. Here we have to ask ourselves, why are deadly weapons being sold to those who plan to inflict untold suffering on individuals and society? Sadly, the answer, as we all know, is simply for money. Money that is drenched in blood, often innocent blood. In the face of the shameful and culpable silence, it is our duty to confront the problem and to stop the arms stride. Three sons and one daughter of this land, 4 individuals of 4 dreams. Lincoln's liberty, Martin Luther King liberty in plurality and non-exclusion. Dorothy Day, social justice and the rights of persons. And Thomas Merton, the capacity for dialogue and openness to God. 4 representatives of American people. I will end my visit to your country in Philadelphia, where I will take part in the World Meeting of Families. It is my wish that throughout my visit, the family should be a recurrent theme. How essential the family has been to the building of this country. And how worthy it remains for our support and encouragement. Yet, I cannot hide my concern for the family, which is threatened, perhaps as never before, from within and without. Fundamental relations are being called into question, as is the very basis of marriage and the family. I can only reiterate the importance and, above all, the richness and the beauty of family life. In particular, I would like to call attention to those family members who are the most vulnerable, the young. For many of them, a future filled with countless possibilities beckons. Yet so many others seem disoriented and aimless, trapped in a hopeless maze of violence, abuse, and despair. Their problems are our problems. We cannot avoid them. We need to face them together, to talk about them, and to seek effective solutions rather than getting bogged down in discussion. At the risk of oversimplifying, we might say that we live in a culture with precious young people known to start a family because they lack possibilities for the future. Yet, the same culture presents others with so many options that they too are dissuaded from starting a family. A nation can be considered great when it defends liberty, as Lincoln did, when it fosters a culture which enables people to dream of full rights for all brothers and sisters, as Martin Luther King sought to do, when it strives for justice and the cause of the oppressed, as Dorothy Day did by her tireless work, the fruit of a faith which becomes dialogue and choose peace in the contemplative style of Thomas Merton. In this remark, I have sought to present some of the richness of your cultural heritage, of the spirit of the American people. It is my desire that this spirit continue to develop and grow so that as many young people as possible can inherit and dwell in a land which has inspired so many people to dream. God bless America.
You're witnessing history right now. Pope Francis addresses a joint session of Congress inside the House chambers, just being escorted out of the House chambers right now, going to head over to Statuary Hall right now. Not shy in addressing some very weighty issues that have divided Congress, long divided over the years, including things like abortion, the death penalty, talking about the refugee situation and immigration, among others, referring to some great American leaders as well as world crises going on right now.
Father Bill, he definitely did cover those issues and so much more in this lengthy address. I think that any question of whether he was going to delve into partisan politics, I think it was answered just now.
I think he was challenging across the aisle. I mean, he was calling for solidarity. That's what he said. Subsidiarity and solidarity. Subsidiarity, working problems out at the lowest level, giving people the strength to make a chance to make their lives better, but also calling us to unity, to try and work towards these problems. And he had straight on from arms control to immigration. And while he was talking about it, he was trying to draw us into not just from a 10,000-foot view of the issue. He says, don't look at numbers, look at persons. Look at their faces. These are human beings, and that's what he was continually calling to say. Those who are affected, for example, by the arms control, there are victims who are innocent of violence, and if we participate in that, then we participate in violence.
I think also, speaking openly here, this Pope has been one that people have gravitated towards. He feels revolutionary. He feels like he has his finger right on the pulse of what's going on. But make no mistake about it, reaffirming his belief in traditional family.
Absolutely.
I think that's important to hear.
And that was the point of this trip to begin with.
Right.
So he was definitely saying that we need to make sure that families are supported, that families have a chance. I think it was also interesting, the four people that he chose.
Mm-hmm. Interesting
Abraham
choices,
Lincoln,
yes.
They were people that coincided with different anniversaries, his visit, but to see that sense of the thirst for liberty of Abraham Lincoln and then Martin Luther King, the idea of a dream. Dorothy Day, who many non-Catholics might not be familiar with, she was a woman that began the Catholic worker movement, going in and living with the very poorest of the poor and helping them as a neighbor.
And converted to Catholicism.
And she was one who had experienced a great deal of suffering and pain in her life. And in fact, she herself had had an abortion before her conversion. And yet she made decisions that were about making life better for other people. And then finally, Thomas Merton, a mystic of the last 50 years, who was one who dialogued not just with other Christian denominations, but in fact was involved in dialogues with Eastern religions, helping people to seek God in and that transcended just Catholicism. And I think that's what he was talking about, plurality and the experience of that.
When you use that word mystic, Father Bill, I think we think of the fortune tellers of the world, but when you say that, what does it really mean?
I think it's one who actively allows themselves to be loved by God and allows that experience to take hold of them in a new way. What we realize is that sanctity is not being boring, it's allowing God's love to be active in your life.
Pope Francis right now walking into Statuary Hall in the Capitol right now. It'll be interesting to see now who he interacts with and if he does in fact go to that statue of Junipero Serra, who was canonized yesterday.
Supposed to make this walk at 10:45, so just about 15 minutes behind schedule there.
Yes.
We're going to keep an eye on this every step of the way. Of course, once he is finished here at Statuary Hall is when he will head out to greet the people. At least that's what they're hoping, all the folks who have been lining up since the very wee hours of this morning. First, though, he will present some gifts as well. Everything happening right there.
Walking into, it looks like the rotunda now. Is it in Statuary Hall or?
Yeah, he is in Statuary Hall.
The instructions were given to not reach out and try to greet the Pope, but it almost looked like he was expecting someone to do so as he walked into the chamber.
There's Junipero Serra on the right, holding up the cross.
And there you see the Pope standing right in front.
The open door and the balcony there is reminiscent of when the Pope comes out at St. Peter's Square.
I was just thinking the same thing. As a matter of fact, as the Pope continues his walk through Statuary Hall right now, let's head outside. You can see the crowd still there on the top right of your screen. On the bottom right, that open door that Father Bill just referred to. Outside in that crowd still is our Bob Barnard. We saw what was happening inside House chambers, Bob, and we saw the response from members of Congress and the administration to certain things that were said. What was the response like outside in the crowd?
It was interesting. I was able to read along online the text of his speech. Most people here did not, but they seemed to get it, even though there were some words that were hard to understand if you weren't following along on the written text. But they seemed to get it here. They appreciated pretty much every key point that he made, of the golden rule was one thing, people, and as we heard early in the speech, the, land of the free, home of the brave, they clearly stood here as well, most standing anyway, but those who were sitting down stood up and applauded that line as well. We're here with people, we'll see him in a moment. I mean, everybody's watched the speech and watching his movements on the big screens here, and right before he comes out, ma'am, what did you make of that speech?
I'd rather not be.
Did you like the speech?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I'm very pleased to be here.
You are very good. And you could understand and agreed with
so.
what?
Yeah, you had to pay attention.
You did. You did have to pay attention out here, guys. But they're paying attention now because we expect in a moment he'll walk out here. And really, that's what most people here came here for, is to see him in person with their own eyes, even if he's going to be a speck of white up on the balcony up there. The whole idea of maybe, listening to the speech, criticizing or critiquing his speech, or agreeing with it was not really what has driven 50,000 or more people here to the west front of the Capitol. It was actually to have what they're about to have here, this connection, this nothing between the space in the air between myself and the Pope, and that's why they're here. That's what they're looking forward to. But they did, when they could understand the simple phrases that resonated, it did strike a nerve here, guys. And in a moment here, you'll probably hear this place erupt from our vantage point out here on the West Lawn.
Well, tell them to get ready because it's going to happen fairly soon, Bob. We just saw that amazing view of what the view will be that the Pope will see as he looks out over the people. And you could just get a better idea of just how many people are there, Bob.
What's the chanting? What is the chant?
Right now it's quiet. Right now, there may be chanting, but in this area where I am, we're not hearing it out here. People are silent, waiting for him to come out. And there are tens of thousands, like almost every piece of grass here, with a huge radius from, maybe 300 yards from the building is just wall-to-wall people, just people. And some of these people, I'm not kidding you, have been standing since about 5:15 this morning, waiting for this moment. And it's quiet where we are. I can hear some voices up front, but what they're doing is watching the jumbotrons. And when they see him come to the door, then we'll see the white. And I'll let the crowd speak for itself when that happens. You'll hear him, I'm sure. It's an eager time right now, and it's moments away.
And one of the big questions, Bob, that we've been wondering is whether or not he would actually speak and address the crowd, or if he would just wave to the crowd. But we do see the microphone that is set up there. I'm sure the hopes of many is that he will offer some words of encouragement, or perhaps, as Father Bill said, even a blessing, I'm sure, would suffice for many.
I think that's exactly what they would love. Some would be fine with just kind of the sign of the cross or a general waving of his hand. But as Father Bill was mentioning, if he says a prayer, my goodness, it feels like, those papal audiences in Rome at the Vatican, that what this is here, waiting for the Pope on a balcony, even just to offer a brief blessing will be just what these people want.
All waiting now. Shouldn't be long now. And earlier, folks were sort of, catching a rest when they could, sitting down, even laying down. And Bob shot, everybody's on their feet right now.
Oh, yeah. There are very few people sitting. And a lady a little while ago came out wearing a white blouse, and everybody thought that was the Pope from the distance. And then realized, no, that's not him yet. And that is kind of neat that he is dressed in all white and should be easy to spot once he comes through the doorway.
Mm-hmm. Father Bill, again, the white robes there, what he's wearing, symbolic of?
Well, they came from when we elected a Dominican Pope years, but they're basically a sign of simplicity and of purity. And here we go. We'll see them now.
agradezco su acogida y su presencia.
I'm so grateful for your presence here.
Agradezco los personajes más importantes que hay aquí, los niños.
The most important ones here, children.
Quiero pedirle a Dios que los bendiga.
I will ask God to bless them.
Señor,
Lord,
Padre nuestro de todos,
Father of all,
bendice a este pueblo.
bless these.
Bendice a cada uno de ellos.
Bless each of them.
Bendice a sus familias.
Bless the families.
Dales lo que más necesitan.
Bless them all.
Y les pido, por favor, a ustedes
And I ask you all, please,
que recen por mí.
to pray for me.
Y si entre ustedes hay algunos que no creen
And if there are among you any who do not believe
o no pueden rezar,
or cannot pray,
les pido, por favor,
I ask you, please,
que me deseen cosas buenas.
to send good wishes my way.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and God bless America.
Well, there you saw it in just 3 minutes. A very brief address. The Pope asking people to pray for him. He blessed the children and the family, saying the children, some of the most important ones out there. And I don't think, Father Byrne, that comes as any surprise, does it?
No, and it was very touching that at the end he said, for those of you who don't believe or cannot pray, send good wishes my way. And it just was, I think it shows something about why people are so attracted to him, that he's not here to judge, he's here
Right.
to love.
Right.
And
As you are.
As you are,
Right.
to find you where you are, to help you take a step closer in whatever direction that may be. And so that was something that was, I'm sure, very touching to all those who were gathered.
Including John Boehner.
Including
He held out as long as he could. You know, many jokes were made years ago about his emotions showing right on his face, and he was very good when he had that initial meeting with the pontiff, but there just could not hold back the tears.
Well, I can imagine standing on his balcony, that's
Right.
the speaker's
Right.
balcony, with the Holy Father looking out at 50,000 people or however many were there,
Right.
and to have the fulfillment of your dream, but also to have these words of blessing come your way must have been a very emotional moment.
Probably dare I say, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but for it to be exactly what he probably thought it would be in that moment. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly,
You meet somebody
exactly.
whom you admire, and then they are exactly the person that you want them to be, and it's just the cherry on top of the sundae for me, I know, and it looked like it was for him too.
And
Very
it's
nice
on your
moment.
balcony.
Little was known about the unassuming 76-year-old who had spent nearly his entire life in Argentina. An intrigued world wondered, who is Pope Francis?
The secret to him is pretty open. He's a Christian. He follows Jesus. He follows Jesus. He follows Jesus. He talks like Jesus. Jesus talked about the poor. And that's all the Pope is saying. Start with the poor.
What do we need to know about this man? Born in Buenos Aires, the eldest son of an Italian immigrant accountant, the Pope-to-be graduated secondary school with a chemical technician's diploma and worked in a lab, as a janitor sweeping floors, and even as a nightclub bouncer before joining the Jesuits.
In just 6 years, he went from being a priest in a small convent in a province to being Archbishop of Buenos Aires and future Cardinal Primate of Argentina. His career has been meteoric.
In Argentina, he was known
as the slum bishop. Yeah.
Why?
Well, because that's where the center of his gravity was for his time as Archbishop.
He quadrupled the number of priests in the slums, lived in a small apartment, rode public transportation, and cooked his own meals.
And he said, the mark of the shepherd is you've got the smell of the sheep. The mark of the shepherd is you've got the smell of the sheep. You have to go out and not only teach, but listen to the people of God.
In 2001, Bergoglio was made a cardinal by Pope John Paul II. After John Paul's death 4 years later, Cardinal Bergoglio was reportedly a front-runner to replace him, until he asked his peers to vote instead for Joseph Ratzinger, who became Pope Benedict XVI. In the years that followed, Bergoglio remained deliberately low profile. But once he became Pope, Francis signaled he was different, with early gestures such as washing the feet of prison inmates and those with disabilities.
Coming to America, Pope Francis will be heading to Philadelphia.
The Pope's first ever visit to the U.S. will include a rare trip to speak to a joint session of Congress, following an invitation from House Speaker John Boehner.
It's the Pope. What he'll want to do is heal. He's not a bomb thrower, and he will not come to insult anybody.
Especially the poor.
The encyclical calls for radical changes to the global economic system. So does Canadian activist Naomi Klein, whose bestseller, This Changes Everything, blames capitalism for ruining the earth, and led her to joining the Pope's team of advisors.
And I think the encyclical is just a kind of a truth bomb. Like it's just has the force of coming from a place that isn't about appeasing public opinion, but is just about trying to tell powerful truths. And when powerful people start telling powerful truths, it's contagious. It's contagious. It's contagious.
Who is Pope Francis? To a great extent, he remains an image we create for ourselves.
Pope Francis is the conscience for this age of the world.
He is a man in a hurry.
Hello brothers and sisters, I have something I'd like to bring to your awareness about ISON. I, just like many others, have been seeking connections to make sense of our past, to work out the reality of the present, and forecasting into the future. I will start off this rabbit hole with a short video of an ancient artifact.
This is the so-called pyramid with the shining eye. Even Jim used it